Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 738B, and today's date is August 10th, 2015. And the title of this episode is The Build-Up to War Continues. Keep an eye on Ukraine and Syria. Now, before I get started, I just want to make a quick announcement. I have placed the interview with Andy Hoffman on the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is X22 Report Spotlight. You can go right over to YouTube, type that in. It'll bring you right to the video. If you want to come to the X22report.com site, you can come over to the site. You will see the interview on the right-hand side. You can view it from right there, or you can click on the top title of the YouTube video, and it'll bring you right over to the X22 Report Spotlight channel, and you can view it there. Let's get right into the economic collapse geopolitical news. Now, we all understand the U.S. government, central bankers, certain states are trying to push mandatory vaccines. And I don't talk a lot about vaccines, but I thought this was important, and I believe this is a complete infringement on our rights to decide what goes in our own bodies. And I see that out in California, the SB 277 was passed, and what's very interesting about all this is everyone thinks, oh, yes, they're doing this out of their goodness of their heart and they want people to be safe. But when you really break it down and you look, you can see that big pharma, the big pharma corporations, well, they donated, I shouldn't say, they bribed some of these senators with hefty payments towards their campaign. And of course, once you do that, you know you have to repay them in a certain way. And when we look at some of these senators, we see that they received a huge amount of sums of money. Senator Richard Pan, $95,000, voted for the vaccines to be mandatory. Senator Ed Hernandez, $67,000. Assembly Speaker Tony Atkins, $90,000. Senator Holly Mitchell, $60,000. And the list goes on and on and on, and you can see basically big pharma, GMO, anything else always has the government employees in their back pocket. And once you receive the money, you owe them something. So are these government employees actually working for the people, or are they actually working for the corporations? Well, everything that I've been saying, they have been working for the corporations. I mean, let's take immigration, for instance. We understand back during the elections, Obama held off pushing the memorandum allowing immigrants who've come over the border to stay in this country. As soon as they come over the border, DHS, the Border Patrol, they cannot touch them. They give them working permits. They can get student loans. They can get auto loans, housing loans. They can join the armed forces. They can do all these different things, get many benefits. The people at that time said, you know something? We're not for this at this point. And this is why he held off to after the elections. But Gallup did a poll, and their poll says 75% are not really supporting increased immigration. Only 25% is supporting that. Because what's happening here is Obama and a lot of other government employees, they're taking their orders from corporations, from bankers, from foreign entities, because we know without these immigrants coming into this country at this point, this system cannot survive because they need fresh new blood in the country. Why? To keep the bubbles inflated, to keep people taking out student loans, to keep people taking out housing, mortgages, auto loans. They need people to go into the low-paying jobs so companies can pay them low salaries, and they're not getting penalized by Obamacare. This is all part of the plan because they realize the American people are tapped out. The American people can't keep this system going. And if these immigrants don't come in, GDP will plummet. The economy will plummet, but this is a band-aid fix. This will not help in the long run. Now they know this. And this is only going to keep the system propped up for a little bit longer. If you notice, everything that they're doing, low interest rates, manipulating all the numbers, bringing in immigrants, and I have nothing about people coming over into this country as long as they go through the right channels. Because most of them that are coming over, a lot of them, could be criminals, could have diseases, they're not checked out, and they're just let into the country. Because their main goal is to basically put them into the system. That's it. It's very simple. And they realize they need to continually prop this system up, or it collapses today. And guess what? Everyone blames them. So we can see at this point in time, and they know that the system is coming down. So at this point, they're like, okay, this is what we need to do. Now, while they're doing this, they need to keep an eye on everybody. They have to understand what everyone is doing. And this is why we're seeing the NSA spying. This is why we see the USA Freedom Act. This is why the companies are going to spy on the people. And of course, this is used for many different agendas, and I mentioned this many times. But the FBI is out there. They're continually saying that we don't need encryption. They're saying citizens should have no secrets that the government can't access. Well, I'm sorry. Maybe you haven't read the Bill of Rights. Maybe you haven't seen the Fourth Amendment. Maybe you haven't seen that. Because I've seen it. And guess what? I'm allowed to have secrets. You can't look at my stuff unless I give you permission. Or you have a court order. But guess what? They don't want that. They don't want to go through all that hassle. The best scenario for them is for people to give up their rights. And of course, this is what they're trying to do through Common Core. Go and take a look at what the government has on whitehouse.gov and how they reworded the rights of the people. And they're going to continually reword it to make you think that the rights are not yours. They're privileges from the government. Well, they have it backwards. The rights are not privileges. The Founding Fathers made sure that it was not, that you were born with them. They are yours. Nobody can take them and nobody can give them. And this is a huge problem. But they tried to create all different laws to infringe on this. We see right now the FBI Director James Comey is saying, listen, if you retweet any type of terrorist organization or violent extremist and you retweet it, you could be held accountable. Well, you haven't committed any crime. You have the freedom to do that if you like. And basically, what's the framework they're using to constitute what's violent extremism? I mean, if somebody comes out and says, okay, I don't agree with the government and I want to retweet that, is that violent extremism? Because I don't agree with the government views? So it's just very vague, and they're getting to the point where, guess what? They're going to go after anyone they need to go after. I mean, let's take the no-fly list, for instance. When you look at the no-fly list, you think these are all the people that they have evidence on because they understand that any minute they're going to create some type of terrorist act. But the watch list, the no-fly list, is based on predicting crimes rather than relying on records of demonstrated offenses. The government was forced to admit this in court. In a little noticed filing before an Oregon federal judge, the U.S. Justice Department and the FBI conceded that stopping U.S. and other citizens from traveling on airplanes is a matter of predictive assessments about potential threats, which is ridiculous. So here we are back to that predictive crime model, like Minority Report. By its very nature, identifying individuals who may be a threat to civil aviation or national security is a predictive judgment intended to prevent future acts of terrorism in an uncertain context. And this is coming from the Justice Department officials Benjamin Miser and Anthony Coppolino. So they have no evidence. They're looking at people saying, this person we should watch. They haven't done anything. They have not associated with anything, but they might do something. And then it's very difficult to get off the no-fly list. But this is what is happening in this country. Pennsylvania is going to start doing this. So this science fiction that we know about Minority Report is actually coming true right now. And if you really look at this with the no-fly list where they have no evidence whatsoever, it's almost everything that they're talking about. Well, Russia brought down MH17. Where's the evidence? We don't have any. Oh, Assad used sarin gas. Where's the evidence? We don't have any. Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. Where's the evidence? Oh, we don't have any. Basically, it's propaganda. That's all it is. They're just pushing it out there, hoping people will believe what they're trying to push. And this is the way our government works. Now, out in Ukraine, we see the situation there is getting very tense. Right now, the Donbass people are saying that the Ukraine authorities, they're using the conflict in this area to evade its financial liabilities in paying the pensioners that live in the Donetsk and Lugansk area. And they're, of course, doing this on purpose because what they're trying to do is make the people suffer and say, listen, you need to come back and be part of Ukraine. So until you do this, we are not going to pay. Now, of course, these people have put money in all their lives. They deserve a pension. They were getting a pension, and now they're not. We understand that the United States government central bankers have been delivering Humvees to Ukraine. And Ukraine is out there saying the equipment that we're receiving is absolutely terrible. It's worthless. The vehicles are equipped with old, worn-out tires. It's becoming problematic for the military, and it's difficult to replace the tires in Ukraine. The Ukraine military also noted that because of the poor quality of diesel fuel, the car's engine quickly gets clogged filters. So yes, the United States government, through the proper channels with non-defensive weapons, they are supplying them with equipment, but the equipment is not good. Now, covertly, they're giving them lethal weapons. And we understand a couple days ago, both sides met to talk about the Minsk II agreement about removing the weapons. And right now, Kiev is not going to sign the document which withdraws the weapons. They're stalling. They're not going to sign it. The Donetsk, Lugansk area said, we have removed our weapons. They will not do it at this point. We see something happened in the southeastern area. The OSCE Special Monitoring Mission in Ukraine lost 4 armored all-roaders last night. The vehicles were set on fire by arsonists. Now, of course, they're coming out and they're saying that, oh my God, look what's happening in the southeastern area. The people don't like the OSCE. They're becoming very dangerous. And they were hoping the OSCE would leave. Now, when I say they, I'm talking about the Kiev government. So basically what they're doing is they're setting up the people in Donetsk. They sabotaged these vehicles. They were hoping the OSCE would remove themselves from the southeastern area because it's too dangerous. And this way, it would give Kiev the opportunity to shell and use force in this area. But the OSCE right now is saying they are not moving out of the area. So it looks like the plan to start something is not going well. We see there's a huge tank battle going on in the southeastern area. Now, of course, the corporate media is all out there saying, oh, the rebels now are pushing towards Mariupol. They're having a battle. They started it. And right now, we see Kiev is actually out there pushing the offensive. Poroshenko said on Monday that about 200 insurgents used tanks to storm the village in Donetsk region in a pre-dawn raid. The village is located halfway between the regional capital Donetsk and Kiev-held port of Mariupol. The thing is, Kiev is going to do whatever they possibly have to do to make it look like the southeastern people are ready for a major offensive. Because when we look at this entire thing with the Minsk II ceasefire agreement, the southeastern people have been pulling back their weapons. They've been trying to keep to the Minsk II agreement. Kiev has not. They receive no penalty whatsoever when they don't abide by the agreement. The United States, France, Germany do absolutely nothing. And we see the situation in Ukraine is becoming very, very tense. Right now, Poroshenko has instructed Foreign Affairs Minister Pavlo Klimkin to arrange talks and what has been going on in the area. And they want the Normandy 4 to get together and talk about the situation. And we see there has been numerous ceasefire violations by Kiev. And right out of Bloomberg and many of the other corporate media, we see Ukraine informs allies. Situation in East worsens as attacks rise. So we can see at this point in time, they're letting everyone know that the southeastern people, they're getting ready to make their move. Now, of course, as we know, it wouldn't make sense for them to do this at this point. Why would they go forward and make their move while they have the Minsk II ceasefire agreement? Because before the Minsk II agreement, they were battling Kiev, pushing Kiev back. They almost took Mariupol. They could have pushed Kiev all the way back and taken over the entire country at that point. That's how well they were doing. But they took their equipment and they moved back. Why would they move back and then go ahead and create another offensive? It makes no sense. What would be their motive? They wouldn't have one. What is the motive of Kiev? Now we have a motive. Because the central bankers who created the coup d'etat in Ukraine did not get what they paid for. They wanted the entire country of Ukraine. They wanted the southeastern region. They wanted Crimea. They don't have it. This is why they're pushing the agenda. So we need to keep an eye on Ukraine because things are getting tense. We see there are drills happening in the Arctic. There's an Alaska drill going on right now, and it's called the Red Flag exercises, and they are going to run until August 24th. And of course, the operation is centered around Russia flying into this region. And we're seeing a lot of these drills. Out in the Middle East, in Libya, what are we seeing? Well, the puppet government who moved the central bank out of Tripoli to a different area, and we discussed this many times before, they are trying to sell the oil to foreign countries. They have three tankers that are loaded with about 2 million barrels of oil, and they want to go out and sell the oil to other countries. But they're having a problem because other governments are not recognizing the puppet government and the central bankers right now. They're saying, we're not going to buy the oil from you because you are not the government in Tripoli. And this is a problem once again. And we know this. They are only dealing with the government, which is the people's government of Libya, not with the puppet government. The peace talks are breaking down, and we can see at this point they will be going into Libya sooner or later. Right now, the United States cannot go into Libya. Why? Because they don't have the authorization for war. The authorization for war allows them to go into any country that has the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, or any other terrorist organization. We see out in Turkey, they are pushing the agenda there. Right now, a gunman attacked the U.S. consulate in Turkey. The situation's getting worse. The Islamic State is all over the place. Well, we know the Islamic State is a proxy army. We know, most likely, this is a false flag. Because they're trying to build it up. This is why we need to go into Syria. Right now, we know the United States has brought in 300 personnel to the Turkish air base. Jets are arriving. 6 jets have already arrived there. Now, the U.S. wants a second air base in Turkey. They put in the request. So what we're seeing is they're ramping up for a major offensive in Syria. Now, Russia is out there. Lavrov is saying, listen, We understand that you're going after the Islamic State, but you need to be very careful that you do not bomb the government facilities, the Syrian army, and we'll be watching. So they already have a warning from Russia. And we're going to have to see what the U.S. government central bankers do, because we know they're not fighting the Islamic State. We know they've been bombing the infrastructure and the territory of the Islamic State, which is the proxy army of the United States, Israel, and the coalition forces. That has been expanding. And we know they've been bombing the infrastructure of Syria and the Syrian army. So we're going to have to watch that very carefully and see how they manipulate this. Now we know and we understand the United States government central bankers have been using the pictures of the chlorine gas victims. The doctor was there, and of course there's no proof whatsoever that links this to Assad. They're just showing the aftermath. They don't have any proof. And we understand that the UN, through the UN resolution, they're going to look into the matter with Russia and the United States to see who actually caused these chemical attacks. And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warned against what he called unfounded claims that Syria has chemical weapons and they used these type of chlorine gas weapons. Because we know some U.S. congressmen are already out there saying he's guilty, guilty, guilty without any proof. He said the operation to remove these chemical weapons was done. It was successful. And chemical weapons are no longer in Syria. He is not using chlorine gas. And if he is using it, please prove it. Present your evidence. And guess what? This is where it falls apart. They can't produce evidence. It's almost like the sarin gas attack back in 2013. Produce the evidence that Assad used it while he invited the chemical inspectors into his country with Russia. At the same time, he was using a chemical attack. It makes no sense. And they could never prove it. And Syria is out there saying, listen, we will help you fight the Islamic State. All you need to do is put in a request. You put in a request to Iraq, and they're fighting the Islamic State. Actually, they're fighting the people of Iraq because they want the government, the puppet government, out of their country. In Syria, it's really the proxy army. And right now, Syria is saying, listen, we'll help you fight them. Just ask us, just like you did in Iraq. And they're basically putting the United States government central bankers, and they're in a corner right now. What do you do? And we're going to have to watch this situation, and we need to keep an eye on what's happening in Syria and Ukraine, because we see things getting very, very tense. And I wouldn't be surprised very soon something big happens. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.